Well, hey there. I'm Jay. Welcome to my booth. Neumann is one of the most venerated microphone manufacturers ever, and many of their microphones are considered staples in the voiceover recording community. I have 3 of those microphones here in my studio, and I've used each of them for extended periods of time. So what I'm going to do is give you a blind comparison between the Neumann TLM 102, the TLM 103, and the U87ai. Give you a blind comparison between the 3 so you can form your own opinions on which you think sounds the best. Does the increase in price equate to an increase in sound quality? Or can you get away with a lower priced microphone for your use cases? So we'll start off with a blind comparison, let you form your own conclusions. Of course, then I'll have a grand reveal and give you the down low on my thoughts and opinions on who might benefit from each microphone the most and my experience using each of them. So let's dive into it. All right, starting us off strong, here is microphone A. I'm about a thumb and a fist's distance away from the mic capsule, 4 to 5 inches, or 5 to 6 inches rather. Pointed at the corner of my mouth. No post-processing will be applied to any of these microphones, the audio here. And how do you think mic A sounds? Get you a taste of this now. Let's hop to microphone B. And here we are with microphone B. This is microphone B. Let your ears get used to the way this one sounds again. It's pointed at the corner of my mouth, about a fist and a thumb's distance, or 5 to 6 inches from my mouth. And no post-processing applied to this one either. And let's hop to microphone C, give you a taste of that one. Okay, and here we are on microphone C. Microphone C, the last in the lineup of Neumanns here. Same deal. I am a thumb and a fist's distance, about 5 to 6 inches away from the mic, with it pointed at the corner of my mouth. No post-processing will be applied here either. All right, let's hop back to mic A for another round through. Back on microphone A, same deal, thumb and a fist's distance away as usual. And how do you think this one sounds now that you've heard the other 2? What are the differences you're picking up? All right, let's go back to mic B, get you situated there again. And here we are back on microphone B. Back on microphone B. Get used to the way this one sounds. And now let's hop to microphone C once again. And back on mic C. Same deal. Not too far away, no post-processing. Here's how this one sounds. And one last time through, back to mic A. Here's microphone A once again. We'll go back to the standardized reading of our Winnie the Pooh passage. One day when Christopher Robin and Winnie the Pooh and Piglet were all talking together, Christopher Robin finished the mouthful he was eating and said carelessly, "I saw a heffalump today, Piglet." And for the last time, back on microphone B. One day when Christopher Robin and Winnie the Pooh and Piglet were all talking together, Christopher Robin finished the mouthful he was eating and said carelessly, "I saw a heffalump today, Piglet." And here we are again, microphone C. Hello, old friend. One day when Christopher Robin and Winnie the Pooh and Piglet were all talking together, Christopher Robin finished the mouthful he was eating and said carelessly, "I saw a heffalump today, Piglet." And the grand reveal, microphone A was the TLM 103. Microphone B, the U87ai. And microphone C, the TLM 102. So, were you on the mark? Did your expectations line up with your observations, or were you surprised in some way? Did you guess correctly? I would love to hear your reactions, thoughts, opinions, everything else down below, and happy to have a discussion. Now I'm going to jump into my opinions and experiences using each of these microphones from the very specific point of view of a voiceover artist working in a home studio who does a lot of their post-processing and engineering themselves. And to kick things off, we'll start with the TLM 103. First off, this microphone sounds really, really nice. Of the 3, I think that this is the most off-the-rack, plug-and-play, easy-to-use, set-it-and-forget-it microphone. For a couple reasons. Firstly, its frequency response is tailored. It's crafted and carved a little bit more than the other two, which I would say are a little bit more neutral than this one is. So if you're not interested in tweaking a bunch of EQs and stuff like that, this one is a really great option in that regard. It has a really great sound right out of the box. And getting a little bit more specific on my voice in particular, or voices like mine, it gives a little bit of love to the lower frequencies, which in my voice represents itself in what I hear as sort of chest resonance, and it gives a little bit of weight and depth to the lower portions of my voice. And then on the other side of things, this microphone has a presence boost at around 5 kilohertz, which does a couple of things. Firstly, it gives a sort of forward-leaning, energetic pull to your recordings, more so than the other two, I think. And it helps to sort of pull out the detail and articulation and sometimes sibilance in your voice, which is really helpful in terms of just crisping up and really nailing down every little aspect of your speech in perfect detail without making it sound harsh or grating. Now, I will say that for me on my voice, sometimes this microphone can get a little bit sibilant, so I do have to carve that out a little bit in post on my end, but you don't really need to do that. It's just something that I prefer to do. In addition to the way this sounds out of the box ready, its self-noise being the lowest of these three microphones at -7 dB is, for all intents and purposes, silent. You can't really hear this microphone. And as an example, can't really hear much of anything at all. This is a silent microphone and it's operating, which makes post-processing and your editing really, really simple from a practical perspective. It also just makes your recordings sound really crystal clean, squeaky, perfect, yada, yada, blah. Really clean recordings. All right, let's talk about the next one. So the U87ai is considered by many accounts, if not the best, at least one of the best voiceover microphones out there. And after having it here in my studio and using it for a while now, I get it. I understand why it has that notoriety. And I think in particular that comes from a engineering perspective rather than a home studio perspective. And what I mean by that is this microphone is incredibly neutral. It doesn't pull any punches. It doesn't change or boost or attenuate or cut any sound, really. It just captures what's in front of it with incredible fidelity, honesty, and sensitivity, meaning that my performance is going to be my performance. No bells or whistles added to it. And on the other side, it's also not going to gloss over any warts or blemishes in my performance either. Now, that being said, this microphone has an incredibly unoffensive sound. It doesn't have sibilance. It doesn't have any frequencies that stand out in a way that's unpleasant to the ear. It just captures everything, and it works well on a lot of different sound sources in particular. So from an engineering perspective, if you've got one voice coming in like mine, and then in an hour you've got a recording session with another voice that's completely different, this will cover your bases in both cases really, really well. Cover your bases in both cases. So I think, all that being said, it deserves the crown, but at the same time, I do think for many folks it is overkill for a home studio. It's not a beginner-friendly microphone. It needs a lot of support to get the most out of it. It needs a well-treated space. It needs good sound isolation. It really benefits from having someone behind the microphone with good technique, good understanding of their own instrument, their own voice. And it needs a little bit of love at times on the back end of things. Which is why it's really helpful in an engineering perspective. It's ubiquitously good, really, really good and honest. But the more specific you get, the more little tiny adjustments become necessary, which is easy enough when you're one voice using it. but I think as far as beginners go and a plug-and-play microphone, this ain't it. Now, I will say for my use case, I really enjoy it because it captures my performance really honestly. I can set up the microphone and I trust that it's just going to get every little detail and nuance in my performance without me having to do anything extra, which I've found really, really helpful. In addition to that, this is the most sensitive of the three microphones in that you don't have to apply much power or gain to the microphone to get a usable signal. So I can be really, really soft and tender with this microphone, whereas with other microphones, that may not be the case. Let's hop to the last of the three that we're talking about. So the TLM 102 is the least expensive, though still not cheap, of these three microphones. It is Neumann's entry-level condenser microphone that they offer. And it is wonderful. I really, really enjoy the sound of this microphone. It, like the 103, is a great plug and play, sounds beautiful out of the box. It's not offensive in terms of the way it sounds, at least on my voice. And I would say, particularly compared to the 103, the presence boost, if you look at the frequency response graphs, the 102 has a little notch taken out of it, which translates to this microphone, at least on my voice, is much less sibilant and sharp than the 103 can be at times. Now, at the same time, that also means that the 102 doesn't have that sort of forward-leaning, almost commercial sound to it that the 103 imparts to my recordings, at least, which is why I use this on some projects instead of the 103 because of that sort of darker, more relaxed, not quite as aggressive sound. And those are all sort of my adjectives that come to mind when I think about it, but choose your own adventure. Of the three Neumanns that we've listened to, this one requires the most gain to drive, which in terms of practical use, as we were saying with the 103, where the 103 has a really, really low self noise and a really, really nice gain. It gives you really clean, pristine recordings. Because the 102 both has a higher self noise than the 103 does, and because it requires a little bit extra oomph from your interface in terms of gain, this one, in my use, introduces a little bit more background noise, whether that be my rustling, a little bit more of my breath sounds, and then, of course, just chain noise as a demonstration. Still pretty darn quiet, but you may be able to hear a difference there between the 103. The other thing that I will say about this microphone, which is a super small deal, but I really, really appreciate about it, it's so cute. It's very, very tiny. And what that means, practically speaking, is it's not obtrusive in your field of vision at all. Whereas when you put it next to the U87, the U87 is still relatively unobtrusive, but I mean, this is 2 to 3 times larger than the 102 is, the U87. So just a small thing that I find really nice about just using the 102. It fits anywhere. You can take it on the road with you and still get great sound. To wrap it all up, what do we take away from all this? Is there a best in heavy quotations amongst these three microphones? I don't know. You tell me. Now, an important question is, do we think that the price differential between $700, $1,100, and $3,200 is worth the difference? Now, that is a little bit more cut and dry, I think. The diminishing returns you get from here to there are pretty substantial, I think. What you get from this one versus these two is not a ton in terms of the way they sound, at least in my opinion. Is it worth the investment? I think if you have the money and you want the sound, then the 87 is great. But I use all three of these still to this day, to the point where I keep them all here in my booth with me. After all, they're small enough that I can just stick them off to the side. And if I feel like, you know what, I think I'm going to shake things up and use the TLM, the 103 today or the 102 today, I do that. Because that's something I enjoy and I feel like it helps to keep me on my toes a little bit. Now again, the 102 and the 103 are much more easy, plug and play, set and forget than the 87 is going to be, and I think that's really the deciding factor, that and the price between these three microphones. Otherwise, it's down to your personal preference. So give them a shot. Let me know if you end up using one of these in the end. I'd love to hear about it and how you're finding it. And if you have any questions about this topic, anything else related to voiceover, drop me a line either here or on my website. And of course, if you're interested in some one-on-one coaching sessions or a correspondence where you email me some audio, I email you my thoughts, I have that service available on my website as well. So check that out if that's of interest to you. And then I'll just catch you in the next one. And until then, be well. Toodles.